So we are going to divide by a decimal. So what you have to do is make the divisor a whole number by moving it over. So you're going to move this over to be a 16, which means that you have to move the numerator over as well. So it's going to be 272. So you have to move both of them over. So you're actually doing 16 divided by 272. So 16 goes in here once. And when I subtract, I get 11. And so if you have your pink thing, you have your multiplication table. So you can go to 16 and see if the row 16 has 112 in it. I didn't bring one of those here, and it is 7. So my answer is 17 is my answer. Okay. So if I do that on 3, I would move this twice and this twice. So I would have 5 into 612. I do want to do this one because it is kind of a little different. So 5 goes in here once. Bring down that. It goes in there twice. Bring down that. It goes in there twice. Now, I would like you, because we're working with decimals, I would like you to put a decimal point here and add a 0, which means I bring this down, so it's 122.4. So I would like you to add a 0 on that if you have to. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at question example 4. I would like you to pause the video and do example 4 and example 5. Oops. Sorry, made a mess. Okay, so on example 4, if I move it one decimal place, I would have 24 divides into 292.5. Okay, so 24 goes into 29 once. Bring down the 2. Okay, it goes in here twice, so that's 48. And if I subtract, 52 minus 48 is 4, and I bring down the 5, 24 doesn't go into, it would go in once, so 24. And when I subtract, I get 21, and I got to keep going. So 24 goes into 210. Let's see, 24 times 5 is 120. 24 times 8 is 192. I think that's it. So I would do an 8, and that's 192. And when I subtract, I would borrow, and I get 8, and borrow, and I get 18. Bring this down, right? And let's see, 24 times 6 is 144. I think it's more than that. 24 times 7 is 168. I'm almost done. 2, 1, and I bring down the 0. And I believe 24 goes into 120. I've seen that a couple times. So you have all of that. So that's as far, and I want you to do that all by hand. Okay, so on this one, if I move my decimal 2 places, that means I'm going to have to move this decimal 2 places. So I'm actually going in to 3,000. So 8 goes into 3 times with 6, and bring down that. So 8 goes in there, 56, and you can use your pink sheet. Bring down there, 8 goes in there 5 times, so my answer is 375. All right, so let's take a look at number 1. A tower of blocks is 18 inches. If each block is, so the whole tower is 18.2 inches, but each block is 0.7. So I want to know how many blocks there are. So I'm going to do 0.7 divided by 18. So I'm going to have to move the decimal. So that's 7 goes into 182. So 7 goes in there twice, 4 left over, bring that down. So there's 26 blocks. Okay. On the next one, Nick used 15.5 gallons of gas to drive 334.8 miles. So how many on the average did he? So I'm going to have to move my decimal. So I have 155 divided by 3348. And that is huge. So if I do 155 times 2, and I'm okay if you use your calculator for that part, it's 310. So if I subtract and I bring down the 8, then I know this is a 1 because it was 310, and I subtract and I get 93, I'm going to add a 0 and bring that down. So does 155 go into 930? So 930 divided by 155 is 6. It does. So 930. So my answer is 21.6 miles. Okay? All right. I would like you to do, I'm just looking at this really quick. I would like you to do 3 and 4. That's all we have to do. Jelly beans cost $6.45 per pound. If Marcus spent $7.74 on jelly beans, how many pounds did he buy? Well, a little more than 1, right? You're going to have to, so that's how much they cost, $6.45 per pound, and he spent $7.74, and they cost this much. So then I should know, so I'm going to have to move the decimal, 6.45 into 7.74. Well, this goes in once. So I would borrow, and that's a 9, and that's a 2, and that's a 1. So then I'm going to have to add a 0, so that's 1290. So I'm going to check that out. 645 times 2. Oh, is that? I put the 0 in the wrong place. The 0 goes here because we brought it down. And then I subtract, and so this was 1.2 pounds, which makes sense because you could kind of eyeball that. All right, on 4. The toll to drive on a certain section of highway is 80 cents. Okay, if Nicole prepays $50, how many times can she drive on that section? So you're taking 50 and you're cutting it into 80-cent trips. So I'm going to have to move the decimal place, which means I'm going to have to add a 0. So 8 goes into 50 6 times, which is 48. And then bring down the 2, and then that would be a 2, which is 16. So you got to put a decimal here and add a 0, and so your answer is 5. So you can go, how many trips can she make? So this goes back, are you going to be in the middle of the tollway, like driving to Denver, go to the airport, you're in the middle of the tollway, and you're like, oh, I'm at 0.5 trips, I have to stop now. So does she have enough money to go 63 trips? She does not. She can only go 62 trips. And I know that seems weird because it's 62.5. So wouldn't you round that up? No, that's the problem is when you think about rounding, you got to think about the story problem. She only has enough money to do 62 trips. She's short and will have to pay before she makes the 63rd trip.